Methodology for assessing the comfort of the urban environment. They started talking about comfortable urban environment in the Russian Federation relatively recently. In 2016, the federal project, Formation of Comfortable Urban Environment, was adopted, which is the prototype of a similar modern federal project, and the rules for the provision and distribution of subsidies from the federal budget to the budgets of the constituent entities of the Russian Federation to support state programs of the constituent entities of the Russian Federation and municipal programs for the formation of modern urban environment. Until that moment, there were no regulatory documents in the legal field at the federal level regulating the formation of comfortable living conditions, and there were separate decrees designed to streamline the development of the urban environment and increase its accessibility at the regional level. Currently, there is a federal project, Formation of Comfortable Urban Environment, which is a part of the national project, Housing and Urban Environment, the purpose of which is to radically improve the quality of urban environment, and the improvement in the quality of urban environment should be monitored through an increase in the quality index of the urban environment, the calculation method of which was introduced by order of the government of the Russian Federation dated 23/03/2019 No. 510-R. State programs have been developed to create comfortable urban environment, taking into account the characteristics of regions and individual settlements in order to implement the federal project, Formation of a Comfortable Urban Environment, at the regional and local levels. However, despite positive changes in the field of legal regulation of public relations aimed at creating comfortable urban environment, the definition of comfortable urban environment is still not stated in the current federal legislation, and the methodology for assessing urban environment comfort, taking into account all elements of comfortable urban environment, has not been formed. There was an attempt to introduce this definition by using separate local regulations. Thus, the decree of the local administration of Nalchik Urban District of KBR, Kabardino-Balkar Republic, dated 01/04/2019 497, on approval of the Municipal Target Program Formation of Modern Urban Environment in the territory of the Nalchik Urban District for 2019 to 2024, stated that the formation of comfortable urban environment is a set of measures aimed at creating conditions to ensure favorable, safe and affordable living conditions for the population in the municipality. In addition, GOSTAR 7038622022, Comprehensive Improvement and Operation of Urban Areas. Definitions, Basic Requirements and Processes, which is advisory, contains such concept as comfort of urban environment, as the ability of urban environment to provide a decent level of consumer services, the balance of transport infrastructure, opportunity for unhindered movement of various categories of citizens, competent zoning, satisfaction of social, cultural, educational, recreational needs of citizens, an adequate level of noise and information pollution. At the same time, urban environment is considered as a set of geographically expressed natural, architectural, planning, environmental, sociocultural and other factors characterizing the habitat in municipalities, including in rural settlements, and determining living comfort in such territory. At the same time, these definitions contain only well-known information about comfortable urban environment, and do not define clear criteria to identify it. Therefore, the issue of the formation and normative consolidation of comfortable urban environment concept remains relevant. The federal project, Formation of Comfortable Urban Environment, implies dynamics analysis of comfort of living conditions by calculating the quality index of urban environment. However, analyzing the methodology for calculating urban environment quality index, we can come to the following conclusions. Firstly, the method itself is subjective due to the fact that points are introduced into the final calculation of the index, calculated by the assessor on the basis of current indicator value, i.e., not the indicator values themselves are included in the calculation, and points awarded on the basis of them. Secondly, a number of indicators included in the assessment do not directly affect urban environment comfort, for example, the share of block of flats located on land plots for which state cadastral registration has been carried out in the total number of block of flats, or are difficult to measure, for example, the number of centers of attraction for the population, units. Thirdly, as a result of assessment, only two conditions of urban environment are determined, unfavorable and favorable. Moreover, urban environment can be considered favorable if, as a result of the assessment, 180 points out of 360 are obtained, i.e., half, which means that even with the implementation of 50% of the indicators, the urban environment can be considered favorable, while the remaining 50% may not be implemented, which undoubtedly characterizes the methodology not from the best side. It should also be noted that the federal project is aimed at assessing comfort of the urban environment, while the methodology under consideration determines the state of favorable urban environment, and an index of the quality of urban environment is introduced as an assessment criterion at the legislative level in accordance with the methodology under consideration, i.e., these concepts have a certain degree of discrepancy. The above facts indicate the need to introduce and standardize not only the definition of comfortable urban environment, but also the methodology for assessing it, as well as a comprehensive criterion for assessing comfort of the urban environment. Separate theoretical studies made attempts to form the definition of comfortable urban environment, however, most of them are not complex, taking into account a combination of factors that affect the quality of the urban environment. The paper Tchaikovskaya, L.V. The concept of comfortable urban environment as an object of legal regulation introduces the author's definition of comfortable urban environment, obtained on the basis of available theoretical studies and existing regulatory documentation. Taking into account this study, an urban environment that ensures harmonious existence and development of a person can be considered comfortable. A modern city must fully satisfy not only biological, but also social and spiritual needs of its inhabitants, without causing significant damage to nature. At the same time, comfortable urban environment should include the following main elements. Environmental component, natural cleanliness of air, water, soils, biodiversity of flora and fauna, rational use of natural resources and their conservation in the interests of present and future generations. Functional component, a sufficient number of facilities for the residence of citizens, healthcare and educational institutions, cultural, leisure and authorities facilities, sports, public spaces, places for production activities, commercial space and other facilities necessary and sufficient to meet rational needs of residents. Component of accessibility, expressiveness and diversity. Objects whose existence is due to the functional component must be diverse, accessible to all residents of the city in space and time, must have its own spirit and expressiveness. Socioeconomic component, life expectancy of the population, birth and death rates, unemployment and income of the population, etc. Digital component, equipment of facilities located in urban areas with the necessary digital platforms. Legal component, the existence of comfortable urban environment should have a legal basis. Taking into account this study, it is advisable to develop methodology for assessing comfort of urban environment, as well as to introduce a criterion for the comfort of urban environment on its basis. It is important to note that the developed methodology should be comprehensive, preventive, while it is quite simple and accessible to an unlimited number of people, and the subjective component should be minimized. Taking into account the above requirements, a statistical method of cognition will be used to develop this methodology. In order to reduce the subjectivity of the calculations, the assessment of urban environment quality should be carried out on the basis of assessment criteria selected from statistical indicators available in relation to the assessed territory. Taking into account a large amount of information contained in statistical collections, a selection of criteria should be made, which can be carried out by the scoring method, which implies the assignment of a certain number of points to each indicator taken into account in the statistical information. For example, if a statistical indicator directly determines the existence of some element of comfortable urban environment, then it is assigned 2 points, if indirectly, 1 point, if not affected, 0, and further calculation should be taken as evaluation criteria only for those statistical indicators that scored the maximum number of points, i.e., those that directly determine the existence of a particular element of comfortable urban environment. As a result of indicator selection for each element of comfortable urban environment, a system of assessment criteria should be formed, which includes a number of statistical indicators that have established normative values. Evaluation shall be made by comparing the actual value of the evaluation criterion with its standard/reference value using the formula, where n actual value of the evaluation criterion, n reference value. At the same time, evaluation criteria included in the calculation and not having normatively justified reference values should be excluded from the calculation with an indication of the corresponding comment. At the same time, evaluation criteria included in the calculation and not having normatively justified reference values should be excluded from the calculation with an indication of the corresponding comment. Based on the obtained indicators of the evaluation criteria implementation, it is possible to obtain the contribution of each element to the total value of urban environment comfort in the studied territory by the following formula, where I the contribution of the element of comfortable urban environment to the overall comfort value, Ni level of the ITH evaluation criterion implementation, N number of evaluation criteria for this item. Based on the results of calculating the contribution of all elements of comfortable urban environment, it is possible to calculate the level of urban environment comfort in the assessed territory, assuming that all elements of comfortable urban environment are equivalent and the absence of any of them is not permissible, according to the following formula, where m the number of elements of comfortable urban environment. In order to visualize the obtained information, the contribution of each element, as well as the value of the level of comfort of the urban environment in the studied territory, should be displayed in the evaluation list, which should have the form presented in Table 1. The proposed methodology for assessing the comfort of the urban environment implies calculating the level of comfort, which can serve as a numerical criterion for assessing the comfort of the urban environment. At the same time, depending on the level of comfort, the state of the urban environment can be determined. For example, it is possible to set the following scale. The urban environment can be absolutely uncomfortable, at a comfort level of 0 to 20%, uncomfortable, at a comfort level of 21 to 50%, conditionally comfortable, at a comfort level of 51 to 75%, comfortable, at a comfort level of 76 to 95%, and absolutely comfortable when the maximum comfort level is reached, 96% more. In order to establish a scale, it is advisable to conduct additional scientific research. In this case, an approximate theoretically possible scale is given. Based on the final values of the comfort level of the urban environment, it is possible to form a comfort map, which should reflect the state of the urban environment using a different color fill for each comfort state within the assessed territories. Figure 1. The issue of normative consolidation of the concept of comfortable urban environment, as well as a comprehensive and preventive methodology for its assessment, which allows introducing a criterion for assessing urban environment comfort, remains relevant at present. One of the options for the definition of comfortable urban environment was proposed in the study 12. Taking into account this definition, this study proposes a method for assessing urban environment comfort, which is comprehensive, easy to use and therefore accessible to an unlimited number of persons. Calculations carried out according to the proposed methodology are based on statistical data, which reduces the subjectivity of the assessment. In addition, if the predictive values of the assessment criteria are used, this method becomes preventive, which allows you to use it not only to analyze the existing situation, but also in the process of planning measures aimed at creating comfortable urban environment and ensuring its accessibility. Moreover, the technique implies the calculation of comfort level, which can be a criterion for assessing the comfort of the urban environment. The proposed methodology and evaluation criterion can also be normatively fixed and used to analyze the dynamics of comfort of living conditions within the framework of the federal project Formation of Comfortable Urban Environment, instead of the applied methodology for forming a quality index of the urban environment, which has a number of imperfections. In addition, as noted above, the proposed methodology is quite simple and implies the presentation of the calculation results in graphic form, which allows it to be used, including in the framework of citizens' education. Thanks for your attention.